navigating organizational overwhelm in times of rapid change. These are, I don't need to tell you all, these are crazy times. And because of that, I was feeling it in my organization too. My husband and I, that we help other organizations with navigating change. And part of that has meant that we're having to change a lot for our own business. And in doing so, then we needed to create sort of a template for ourselves through which we can make these decisions. And do so without suffering from decision fatigue. I mean, this is a very real thing that people suffer from and that people have, and that really causes us to question ourselves, and it causes us to have hiccups in our life that add to some of the bad decisions and overwhelm and general sense of malaise that is going through for a lot of people right now, is affecting a lot of people right now. And so we put this together for ourselves, but we wanted to also offer it to people. It just feels like the right thing right now to be offering this to all of you, to be giving and coming from this place of giving. And it just feels good, and it feels right. And so with that, we created this system. And in this system, there's also a handout. So hopefully you all got the handout. If you didn't, please chat with Scott. Put that into the chat. You can do so by kind of scrolling down to the bottom of the screen, and the chat will come up for you. So with all of that, let's go ahead and get started. I want to start with chatting a little bit about myself. Most of you, we've worked together in the past, and I'm grateful for the relationship that we have. And I know that some of you are new in my world, and I welcome you. I'm glad that you're here. But many of you know that I am a sociocultural anthropologist and have been working with organizational change through the lens of anthropology for many years. But one of the things that you might not know about me is that my business path really started in a different pandemic, during a different pandemic. I worked in the hot zone, like in the middle of things, during the HIV/AIDS, maybe the ramp up during that pandemic, in helping organizations be more efficient with what they were aiming to do, what they were trying to do. And then through the years, I learned more about business anthropology and organizational change in terms of change management and business strategy. And it's interesting to be back here, doing this from my quarantine, from my home, but doing the same work that I really started with, which was helping organizations navigate their way through rapid change, or environments that were throwing obstacles their way constantly, over and over and over again. And so that leads me to, in this big, it's kind of like coming home in this big full circle way. I feel like I'm back to my roots. I'm back to my origins of being able to help others in these really stressful times when we are wondering about our health and the health of our loved ones, but then also the organizational health and the health of our economy, and then the health of ourselves insofar as we, all of us that are in this community, we are the ones who want to promote change and want to help other people, and because of that, we want to do right by ourselves and by our stakeholders. And so this is for you. I just want to say that this information can really help change things pretty quickly. If you're in a position where you know that your clients' needs and demands are changing quickly, and maybe you're not quite sure how to keep up with the change, or that decision fatigue is creeping up, and you're not so confident about the decisions that you're making in keeping up with the change. This is for you if, like many people, your employees or your team members or your family members or other people that are impacting your life right now are distracted by fear and panic, and your productivity is maybe suffering. This is for you if you tend to be in reactive mode right now. I mean, we'll talk about your strategic planning efforts as they came into the pandemic and they came into the changes, but all that's kind of out the window. And so it causes us to start reacting quickly. And that's not necessarily the best thing for positive change in the long term. It's for you if you're finding yourself in a state of uncertainty, and that your clients or your stakeholders or your team members are in this state of uncertainty, and you want to meet their needs and you want to continue to do so, but you're just not sure if you're doing it well or you're doing it right. And the other piece of this is that, we're experiencing change going into the unknown of the economy, the pandemic, our health, all of this. We're in the throes of this, but ultimately things will ease up. And we will enter a time again where we'll be on the other end of this, and that will be good. That will be positive if we've done the right things to set ourselves up for success. But that requires more change management as well. And so we intend for this body of work to help you not only navigate your way into the abyss, through the abyss, but also on the back end of it as we continue to change on the back end of it. So I do want to give you some positivity, though. I do want to share with you that the good news is that it's possible for you right now. I want to share with you now to have this clear process for taking a look at your business. Today's different than it was, and that's okay. That's as it should be. But we need to be different as well. We will only see our businesses grow to the extent that we as leaders are prepared to grow with it. And right now, the environment is calling on all of us to grow and to step into our strength as business leaders like never before. It's possible to have a way to develop a triage plan, and that's precisely what I'm going to be sharing with you today. It's possible to manage your expectations and the expectations of your employees so that they don't stay in a sense of overwhelm or uncertainty or worst of all, fear and the panic that can come up from that. And it's possible for you to have a very clear communication plan with your stakeholders. I'm going to walk you through that today to make sure that you're not letting any of this communication fall through the cracks. It is now more important than ever to be communicating with the people who need to be hearing from you. This is what's with the battleship? Well, we're not going to be steering a battleship today. This is to be done quickly. The point here is that we want to do this without having to take the time to steer the entire plan of your business and the entirety of your business, but to look at your teams, your organization, your business in smaller chunks, and to use those smaller divisions or smaller chunks and to steer them quickly. That's what this is about. And so, I'm proud of what we've come up with that I'm going to share with you today. I'm proud of the template that I'm going to be providing you, because I know, having used it with some of my clients already, that it makes a difference. It's gonna move the needle for you. And And it feels good to be giving right now and to be giving that to you right now. So I'm excited to be digging into exactly how to do that and how to apply that to your business. And as always, I'm available. If you feel like at any time you want my eyes on your work, I'll tell you a little bit later. I've made it super simple and easy to get that done. But if at any moment you feel like you're going to want extra help during this whole transition that we're in, please message me. Please feel free to reach out and let's talk about that, because that's ultimately what I'm here for, is to help you navigate through this with whatever tools that I have and however that needs to look. Let's work together on making sure that you're successful for this next step. So today, we're specifically going to be diving in on the importance of having this dynamic and changing triage business plan, so that you can have the confidence that when you're making decisions that you can sleep at night, because you know that they're the best that you can do with the tools that you have. We're going to discuss how quickly to assess the current needs of your business. I'm going to share with you precisely how to do that. We'll talk about how to develop your prioritization plan within this structure. I'm going to share with you tools on how to manage expectations from your team and your shareholders. And then finally, I'm going to share with you how precisely you can communicate your plan to your first level workers or your team members, or gosh, in many instances, your family is going to be very important in all of this as well. So the question becomes, why do we even need a triage plan? Well, I'd like you to think about the cost of not doing it. You know, one of the first reasons for having a very clear and precise triage plan is that your display of leadership is going to be remembered for a long time to come. You know, we need to process trauma through storytelling. It's what we do. And at the end of all of this, we're going to be telling the story of how our leaders handled this pandemic. You know, we'll be telling the story of a crisis and how well we were able to navigate through it, and how well our leaders were able to navigate through it. Now, if you're on this webinar and this training and you identify as a leader, and you know that you have influence right now over other people, you need to know that they are going to be looking to you. They're going to be highlighting your leadership and how you help navigate them and the systems that they're a part of through this crisis. You know, nothing highlights poor leadership like a crisis. But the opposite of that is true as well. Nothing highlights excellent leadership like navigating through a crisis well. I think that we can probably all come up with examples of people who have driven their organizations or their businesses to a place of no return already, just simply in their lack of how they managed it, how they communicated it, where they met obstacles. And then we can also think of leaders in our communities, in our peer groups, who are taking the hard knocks and the obstacles with a level of grace and understanding, and in a way that makes you just want to follow them. And so right now, I want you to be asking yourself, what kind of leader do I want to be in helping people through this time of quick and rapid change? Do I want to be remembered in these stories for the influence that I have in a sense of calm and handling things, or in a sense of anger or panic or frustration or overwhelm and not being able to handle things? And incidentally, these examples come from people who have the same access to resources. You know, there are some people who are smooth sailing through this and are handling it poorly. And there are some people who are up against every obstacle imaginable And they are the people I want to follow right now because they're handling it with such ease and grace. And so again, just think about who you are in all of that. And that's why it's so important to be following structures and such so that we can do this well and not do it from a reactionary mode. We know even in calm times that running a business from a reactionary mode is expensive and it's not worth it to put your business or your organization or your team through the expense of being in a panicked state when you're reacting to external environmental changes and moving from that. You know, when we have stress responses, which let's just be blunt here, everybody does right now. We all do. Nobody is immune to the stress responses that are going on in the world right now. But when we do, we are limited from our executive functioning brain. We're limited from our creativity and our pattern recognition. And a lot of the highly emotional, intelligent traits that make us good leaders. And so the more we can focus on exactly how we can be proactive in looking at our businesses and looking at our organizations, now we can at least have the confidence that we're doing what's right for our business right now with what we have, with the information that we have right now. And it's a lot less expensive to do it that way. It's also important for you to have a triage business plan because, quite frankly, your employees, your team members, your stakeholders, they need your help right now. Panic and overwhelm are actually the new normal in the workplace, whether you're seeing it or not. If you're seeing nothing but calm around you, please know that that calm sometimes comes at an expense. And the more that you can be there to help normalize an appropriate response, the more that the people who are looking up to you to model appropriate behavior, they start feeling calmed. Because if somebody is coming to work every day and they're not feeling calm, they're worried about their family, they're worried about their own health, they're worried about the economy, they're worried about all kinds of things, and they look to you to normalize behavior. And right now, you need to be there to send a very clear message that you are doing what's right for the business and that you have the confidence. And that requires you to do the work to gain the clarity so that you do actually have that confidence. So let's talk about what a triage plan is. You know, we've borrowed this language from the amazing healthcare workers that right now are sadly having to use the guidelines of triage to figure out how to deal with the overwhelming number of people that are headed their way. And in a medical triage plan, you know, they look at, okay, who needs immediate help or what needs to be addressed immediately? What intervention could potentially be delayed here? Who needs little or no help or just a little bit of help? And who is it really, or what is it not really worth focusing on because of a low potential for survival? You know, and it's even hard to say the words when you translate triage plan to its original origin story, but the truth is that that's what people are dealing with. And so I don't mean to use this language tongue in cheek and to belittle that at all, but really, when we're looking at the economic direction that we're going through, our businesses or our business divisions, you know, I know some of you on this call are part of large organizations. I want you to think right now in terms of smaller projects or smaller divisions. Because right now, that's where the triage is going to happen. That when you need to be quick and you need to be nimble and you need to be changing on a regular basis, you need to chunk it down into smaller areas, and we're going to be looking there. What a triage plan is not is your big strategic direction. You know, some of you may have been on the webinar that I did earlier in the year when I was talking about preparing your workplace culture for your larger strategic plan. I'm a huge fan of strategic planning, as many of you know, but that's not what this is right now. It's a subset of your larger business plan, but we all know that your larger business plan needs to take a back seat because of the amount of change that is going on. If you have a plan that is set in motion and the environment changes rapidly around you, that's always a time to revisit your strategic plan. But right now, what we need is a template to revisit that plan on a daily, regular basis. And that's exactly what we're going to dive into right now. So what I have for you and what you have in your package, in the handout that you have, is the 4 P's for creating your triage business plan. I'm going to just stop sharing my screen for just a minute and check in with folks and just make sure that things are going well in the chat. If you'll just bear with me here, want to make sure. Looks like everybody's got what they need, and now I can see faces, and it's really beautiful to see all of you all here. And thank you so much for joining me. And what a treat for me to get to share this all with you. So, all right, back to my presentation here. We're going to go through the 4 P's right now of creating your triage plan, and the first one is process data. We're gonna look at the data that we need, and I'm going to show you a way to mark down the data that you're going to need in order to realize this for yourself. And then, as I suggested, we're going to need to know how to prioritize that action, because in triaging, there are some things that are going to need to take a back burner, and there are some things that are going to need our eyes on it right away, and you need to know the difference. The third step is in preparing others, and this is where you can start navigating some of that overwhelm through managing expectations of others. And then the fourth, very, very important, is having proactive communication so that other people know that you've got your eye on the ball right now. So starting out with process data, and here's where you can start following along on the handout that you've received. The first thing that you want to do is think about the categories that are important to your business based on any work that you may have done on your mission, vision, and values. Now, if you haven't done work yet on your mission, vision, and values, you know, part of me wants to say, shame on you, you should know. but that's okay. Keep moving on anyway, because we all have a sense of inner morality. We all have a sense of inner guidance that will be aligned with what we're doing for our business. And if they're not aligned, you're in the wrong field, you're in the wrong place. So just trust. If you don't have mission, vision, and values to lean on, just trust that, to know that your inner guidance will take you there anyway. When the seas have calmed on the back end of this, if you still would like to do this work, reach out to me. I'd love to help you put that together for your business. But don't focus necessarily on that right now. Trust your inner guidance and trust that your own personal values about what's best for you and what's best for the people in your organization are going to guide you well through this process. If you do have it, go back and look at it and think about the categories that become important in this process. Now, I've listed some here on this slide, as you can see. You know, people hopefully are important for all of you. The people that you affect, and the people that work for you, and the people that you work around, and other stakeholders. Safety is probably very important, and it's kind of top of mind right now. And by safety, I don't just mean physical safety, and do people have the proper PPE to be continuing working, or are they are they putting themselves at risk by doing work? You need to be focusing on that. But I also want you to be focused on psychological safety, emotional safety, and such right now. Money and economics, I'm sure, are very important to many of you right now, and thinking about the flow of money that's coming in and the flow of money that's coming out. You may want to tease that out even and have two categories for that. Excuse me. Other resources. I know some businesses are affected by their supply chains right now, and you're going to want to know or ask yourself questions about those supply chains and where your resources are coming from, whether that's physical supplies, or it could be tools and learning that need to happen right now. Perhaps in order to be fluid and pivot through this, your resources need to be new training that you need, or new skill sets that you need to hone up on in order to meet the demand that is coming your way. The relationships that you have are extremely important right now, and the more that you can be proactive in managing them and managing the expectations for them, again, the better that you are exhibiting a positive level of leadership, and it's going to pay off for you in the long run. And then authority. This is an interesting thing to think about right now. I wanted to put it up here because I think it's important for you to be thinking about who has access to resources, but also who is the right person to be doing the communicating, and to be and to be making the decisions, and who has authority in what scenarios, and are they doing the right thing? Are they stepping into their leadership in the right way? You, especially for those of you who are running larger operations, as I know some of you are, you're going to want to pay attention to making sure that those people who are under you but are also running their own teams, that they're stepping into their authority and their leadership in the best way that they can be to help mitigate some of the overwhelm in the responses on this. Now, you will notice I've got a sample grid for you set out for you on the first page of your worksheet, but then I've also got a blank grid set out for you on the third page of the worksheet. And that's where what you can do is, once you've listed out these categories, I want you to put them across the top row of that grid. So, for example, people goes into the first column right there, and then you can fill in the blanks otherwise. So go ahead and write down some notes here, and know that when you really take the time to dig in and do this, then you can be in a much more powerful position as you process the data that you have. All right, then the second, my slide doesn't want to advance for some reason. Let's try this. Yes, there we go. There we go. All right, so the second step, still in processing data, is to know that for each of these areas that you listed above, I want you to be thinking about these questions. And pardon me for just a second, I'm going to sip some water and clear my throat just a bit. All right. So for the first question we have, what does normal look like? Now, normal is a relative term, isn't it? But I want you to start thinking about, what did things look like perhaps last month or last week? Now, the normal may also be changing. If you were to revisit this body of work on a daily basis or on a weekly basis, only you know how often you need to revisit this. But as you revisit it, I want you to think about, what is the normal, or what is the past as it has been normal leading up to this moment right now. And that could be the normal for last week. If you do this for the first time, I want you to think about what is normal insofar as what was typical for your business before the outbreak, before the quarantine, before the changes in your business. Mark that. And then as you update your triage business plan, think about the new normal in that, what was that chunk of time like in the last area that you brought to the game. And then in the second box, I want you to write about, well, what's different about it today? Here's where you're developing a little bit of a delta model, a change model to decide, all right, here's how it has been, here's how it's different today. Then I want you to start writing about the impacts of the changes between number 1 and number 2. How is it impacting that category? So for instance, if you're taking people down and, normal looked like everybody gets to come to work, and different today looks like only 20% of the people get to come to work. Think about the impacts of the changes on the people that delta has created today. And again, you can start seeing the power of updating this on a regular basis, because that impact is going to change on a regular basis. Their feelings of security and safety and economic safety and emotional safety and all of that are going to change. And you're going to want to look at that. Also, you want to ask yourself, what are the long-term implications of the impacts on those changes today? So this can be, quite a big grid if you want it to be. If you wanted to put this into an Excel spreadsheet and just brain dump on it. But the power in it is that once you've done that once, then tweaking it along the way won't take you quite as long, and it won't be very difficult to do, and you can kind of do some of this on the fly. But if you lose sight of some of these questions, you're putting yourself back into a reactive mode. Then you're going to need to prioritize your actions. All right, so comparing those actions that you labeled in your grid with your mission, vision, and values, or your own personal unique values, I want you to start thinking about what are the highest priorities that you have for today. And you'll be able to see them once you've written them all out as you're writing, whether you're handwriting it on the grid that I've provided for you, or you're typing it into a spreadsheet that you can share with other team members. One way or another, as you start documenting this, you will start noticing, oh, expletive. This is where I need to focus. This is where we need to be driving our decision-making today. Equally important, I want you to think about what you are knowingly letting go of today. There will be some things that you know not to do today simply because they don't win the priority action. Now, it could be, I'm not going to do this today, but I absolutely need to do this tomorrow. Great. But this way, you know to do that, and you know to make a decision in that way as you go along. Now, before we move on to the next phase of preparing others, I just want to pause right here and say that if filling this out for your unique business feels overwhelming just to get this done, and you know that you would benefit from having my eyes on it, I just want to pause and say that I have put together an easy way for everybody to do that. I've cleared 11 slots on my calendar to meet with people to do exactly that, to help you build the confidence that you need to know that you're making the right decision for your business by going over this triage business planning process together. And this is something when I normally work with clients on strategy in sessions like this, I normally charge $1,200. I'm going to do this for $300 for those for the first 11 people who do it. If you already know this is something that you're going to want, go ahead and put in the chat, I'm in, and Scott will private message you. He'll get your phone number and your email address, and he'll put you on my schedule. If you already know that that's something that you're going to want, go ahead and grab that. It's definitely better. It's worth the $300 to sleep well at night, just knowing that there's another set of eyes on your triage business plan, and I'd love to do that with you. And if you are just invested in doing this on your own, I have fully intended on making this simple for you to follow along, and let's keep going. So the third step is in preparing others. And this is where we're going to help mitigate the overwhelm that some people are feeling by setting expectations. You know, this is truly one of the most important things that you can do for your business. And look, I say right now, but the truth is that setting expectations is one of the most important things that you can do for your business in calm times. And I am a big fan of this in having a look at your customer service process, specifically because you never know when people are in a state of overwhelm in the past, in the regular workaday world. But now you can pretty much assume that people are in a state of overwhelm. And what happens when people are in a state of overwhelm is that they feel uncertainty, you know, and that's worse than giving them bad news, because in a state of uncertainty, people will they'll use their own fiction building process to make up a scenario that they think is logical. And most of the time they'll get it wrong because it'll be informed by the fear or the panic or the overwhelm that they're thinking. And so if you can create more certainty in their life than uncertainty, even if it's bad news, even if what you're telling them isn't what they want to hear, ultimately it helps calm the chatter in their subconscious minds that can lead to further panic down the road. And so in setting expectations, I want you to think about these questions. What is your audience unclear about? And if you don't know, then ask them. This is the time for us to be asking questions. What would you like to hear from me? How would you like to hear from me? What don't you know that you're unclear about? You know, certainly we can make assumptions about some of it, but some of it, they need to tell us, and we need to be willing to engage our leadership skills of empathic listening. And that means simply that we're more invested in being understood than we are invested in being right. And in using these skills, we can come to this place where we can say, I need to know from you what you need from me. I want you also to be very clear about what decisions can you not make. Either it's not time, you don't have enough information, for whatever reason, there are going to be some unknowns that simply you can't address, and that's okay. But you do need to know about them, and you need to know when that changes. And so again, in revisiting this often, you'll notice when precisely the moment changes from this being an unknown to this gaining clarity, and then you can make the decisions based off of that. All right, now I want to go into proactive communication, and this is so incredibly important in any time that we're running a business. But right now, because we're also often in a state of overwhelm, sometimes it's easy to let the proactive communication fall through the cracks. It's probably one of the first things to go when leaders are experiencing any kind of overwhelm, which is it's odd, you know, it's not good, because it's one of the first things that you need to be leaning into during times of uncertainty and rapid change. Okay. So I recognize that somehow, let's see if I have another slide here. Oh, there we are. Here's the better slide, the first one on proactive communication. All right, so here's where you want to address concerns, whether you know the answer or not. You know, if you don't know, please don't guess, but simply say, I don't know. This is Leadership 101. Simply say, I don't know. I'm going to find out for you, or we're going to find somebody who does know, or now is not the time to know. And I've marked it as a question and we'll come back to it. But it's not the time to be guessing. It is the time to be addressing all the concerns that may be out there one way or another. All right, the first step in proactive communication, particularly in times of stress, is to start at the beginning. Many people will jump into crisis communication from that point on. And what happens is that your audience thinks that you're going to be talking about, one thing, and you jump in talking about another thing. You get halfway through and they go, oh, this is where we are. This is what we're talking about. Okay, wait, hold on. Now let me catch up. Right? Have you ever had this happen before? This happens when the person who's doing the communication fails to set a baseline standard of making sure that there are no assumptions of where you're starting. So I want you to start your meetings or your communication, whether it's written or however it's done, with here's where we are. This is what we're talking about. You may even want to go into a little bit of historical context that gets you to where you are right now as you start talking on that particular topic. Getting everybody on the same page at the beginning of the communication process seems obvious. It seems so obvious, but I can tell you it gets lost and people are left in a state of misunderstanding, and the confused mind says no. And what that means to you as a business owner is that they either check out, they don't engage with you, they go away and they find something that they can have some level of control over, and that may not be the appropriate thing for what you need from them at that given time. All right, number 2 is you need to decide who communication needs to come from. This is going back to that authority piece that we talked about in step 1. Who doesn't it come from? There's going to be some bits of news, because some of the news and some of the communication that's coming out right now is so high stakes that there will be some delivery that will be wildly inappropriate for somebody to say it, where it's very appropriate for somebody else in your organization to say it. And you need to be knowing the difference based on the level of communication and who it's going to. Which leads me into the third step. Who needs to be communicated with? And it's so beneficial for you to be thinking about this ahead of time. There are your employees, but there's also your vendors, your stakeholders, your clients. And for many of us right now who are working from home, or maybe even just in different locations or with different schedules than before, family often gets left off that list, thinking that we don't need to communicate with our employees' families, or our employees don't need guidance or help in communicating with their families. That's up to them. But for us as leaders, we can help mitigate some of the stress and the overwhelm that they're feeling if we can help them with that communication, or if we're doing a good job communicating well with our own family members, with the changes that are happening in our business lives or whatever, we can help mitigate some of our own overwhelm, and that makes a huge difference in all of this. But be thinking about, who do you need to proactively communicate with? And let me just say, there may be people on this list that you say, they're fine, they're doing their thing, they know I'm doing my thing. That does not mean that does not excuse you from proactively communicating with them. Right now, while things are changing, People need to be calmed in knowing that you are addressing, whatever. If there are changes that are being made, you don't want to spring it on them when, after the fact. You want to let them know ahead of time that that's important to them. You want to be thinking ahead of time about the appropriate means to communicate with them. Do they need a phone call from the president of your organization? Do they need a Zoom meeting? Do they need to be one-on-one? That's more rare right now, but some people within your organization, it's actually true. I don't want you to let technology be the obstacle of the message. It is the message that's important. However, and thank goodness we have this great technology that's aiding us right now. But it is important for you to think about the level and the importance of the communication happening needs to match the delivery model. Also, you want to know about how often you're going to communicate. People will need updates, and they need to know that you have your eye on regularly looking at your triage business plan. How often are you going to communicate those changes to the people who are going to be affected by them? And here's where you can manage expectations ahead of time by communicating turnaround times and other expectations that your stakeholders may have of you. All right. And then finally, something that we're seeing often is emails that get lost in the bucket. There's so much communication right now that's going on digitally, and it was, probably 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago, you could write, say, COVID-19 at the subject of the email, and your stakeholders would know that this meant a change in, the larger world right now, and that's just not going to be enough. It's best if you're titling your emails very specifically based on the subtopic that you're communicating. And one way to do this is to start with brackets. For example, I have here overtime. That means the subject of this email is going to be about overtime, and then you can write something else after that outside of the brackets, which might actually be the date or the subset of people that you're talking about, or some other chunking down in communication. And the purpose of this is to help you in organizing the vast amount of data that's coming across digitally and electronically. And you're going to want to have your eyes on that as well. Importantly, on all of this is the idea that you need to manage your own fears before you're communicating. Any communication that's coming from you as a leader, again, your stakeholders, your family, your employees, your teammates, whoever you're working with, they're looking for you to be an example. And if they see you in a state of overwhelm, or if they see you in panic or feeling like you don't have the confidence that you know what's right for your business, then that's going to be an issue moving forward, and you need to know how to manage that. And if you'd like help with that, my goodness, please reach out. I'd love to help you with that. Now, I get that this triage business plan was meant to be easy for you. Sorry, it's actually meant to be simple for you, but I get that it's not easy. And so this is me just saying that I am committed to your success in this. And so because of that, I wanted to make it easy for you to have a greater sense of confidence that you're doing what's right for your business. And so that is why I set aside 11 slots in my calendar coming up. If any of you feel like you'd like just a little bit of additional help in gaining the confidence that you need for right now in going over this triage business plan, please just message in the chat I'm in, or private message me in another means. And I'd love to help you. I've made it super easy. You know, I normally charge quite a bit for this kind of thing, and I'm doing this for just $300 because it just feels like it's the time to get to work. It's the time to be doing it right, and it's the time for me to be generous, and I want to do that for you as well. So I want to leave you with thoughts of, what is it costing you to be feeling overwhelming? You know, to be feeling this sense of you don't know what's going on in your business. And I really want you to get in touch with that, because the cost to you is not just, it's not just money, it's not just the $300, it's the spirit, it's the energy. It's your own sense of well-being. And you know, gosh, you know me, I focus on your well-being. I focus on my well-being, which is why I've limited this to just a few slots. Uh, but know that your sleep at night is worth it. It is worth the $300 to get a good night's sleep, because you know that you've put in the work and you've got the confidence to know that you're making the right decision for your business right now. And that's why I'm committed to you to make sure that you're getting this done. And if I can be of support in any way possible, if you're feeling overwhelmed beyond this, let me know. Please reach out, private message me. Let's get on the phone. Let's have a chat about that. If you have other questions about leadership or navigating change or organizational anything, get on the phone with me. Please reach out to me. I do want to be here for you. And if you would like my eyes on your triage business planning confidence, I want to offer this consult to you because I think that this is important right now. I believe that it's helpful in moving you in the direction in your dreams. So go ahead and just put in the chat, I'm in, and we'll meet you where you are. We'll find a time slot that we can work with you. If you're listening to this on the replay, please reach out to us on email. Here, let me share with you. You can message either me directly or Scott at alchemyacademy.com. You know, certainly there were people that are claiming these here, and if I need to open up a waiting list for this, I'll consider doing that. But I do want to make sure that it's available to you all. And with that, my friends, let me know if you have any other questions. I'm available to you. I hope this has been helpful to you, and it's been such a joy in sharing this time with you and having you all here with me today. And I've loved getting to see your beautiful faces and the little Hollywood Squares thumbnails that you have that are up on my screen. So with that, my friends, go off and be productive and have a wonderful day. God, I said that right when I said it, I was like, oh, don't say that. Productive gets to mean whatever you want it to mean. It's okay to not be okay right now. And so do what you can, and that's all right too. But gosh, I love you all. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.